Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another installment in our reviewed and ranked series. We're making some very nice progress through the base roster as we analyze the usefulness of each individual character on this roster and whether or not you should add them to your team for overall gameplay. And today we have the Interstellar Assassin and daughter of Thanos, Gamora. So before we jump into more details about Gamora, make sure you check to see if you're subscribed to the channel. If you're not, go ahead and fix that, as the subscription is free and easy. And if you find today's video helpful and or enjoyable, don't forget to leave a like on the video. So Gamora is a very interesting character and one of the first characters that you have available for your use within the roster of characters. Personally, I think that she's the best of that initial 4 squad in terms of what she has to offer with her abilities and damage output. Though when initially starting the game, it is important to note that she has a very limited set of abilities, as you need to level her up to get more access to her full kit of abilities. So let's start by looking at the synergies that Gamora has access to. And Gamora actually has access to 8 different team building synergies. She has 1 resilience synergy with the Guardians of the Galaxy, 2 mastery synergies with Femme Fatales and Agile Fighters, 1 vitality synergy with the Ultimate Alliance 3 synergy, 1 energy synergy with Women of Marvel, 1 defense synergy with Family Values, and 2 strength synergies with martial artists, making her the first character we've looked at so far to have at least 1 synergy type in all of the 6 different synergy categories. And that is a very interesting and unique characteristic to Gamora's character, but of course she has a lot more to offer than just that. So now let's transition and look over to her basic abilities before looking at her unique abilities. First off, we have her basic attack combo, which involves a series of 4 slashes with that sword that she wields, and it takes her in a forward-facing trajectory. Those hits and connections will stun or put into hit stun the basic characters, which will discourage any sort of counterattack that might come from them. So in that regard, she's already better than a select number of the cast that we have looked at so far. Her heavy attack involves a singular uppercut slash with that same sword. It does put her into the air in more of a freefall animation, which as a consequence of that animation, you can immediately chain a falling aerial into the rising heavy attack, which can help to increase your overall damage output, but it really only helps against those characters who are not knocked back when the heavy attack is initially used. Gamora does also possess a double jump, which allows her to have some increased traversal for some of the different environmental puzzles, and we've discussed that in previous installments to this series, so I won't go too much more in depth to it here. But it is also important to note, as we mentioned earlier, that falling aerial attack does have 1 solid hit, as Gamora does a heel slam down into the ground. This can be activated either off the end of a heavy attack or either a jump or double jump. And finally, we have the block and dodge animation. Gamora has a very unique blocking stance where she braces the sword out in front of her. It doesn't deal any damage to opponents that are attacking in, but rather allows her, that benefit of blocking any incoming damage. And as she dodges enemy attacks, it is that customary forward roll in the direction of input. So now we can transition over to talking about the different abilities which Gamora possesses. Her first ability is Death from Above, where she will leap into the air and slash down into enemies in a radial shockwave type area. This will provide some knockback for some of the grunt characters that do not have a stagger bar, and deals piercing attack damage along with having the slam synergy trait. This ability is pretty even across the board, having a C class in damage, a C class in energy point consumption, and a C class in the stagger damage dealt when analyzing the attack from its maximum efficiency. As this ability and all abilities in Gamora's kit are upgraded, they possess benefits from having a reduced energy point consumption, having an increase to the overall attack damage, an increase to stagger damage, and finally, the reduced chance of the attack being interrupted when fully upgraded. The second ability which Gamora possesses is Deadly Aim. This involves a backward somersault from Gamora as she draws her blaster guns, and this attack can be extended indefinitely, assuming an adequate pool of energy points available to use. By continuing to press the button, it can also be influenced by adjusting the area of attack out in front of the character once the attack has been initiated. That being said, it's not the greatest ability in her kit, as it's decent on the damage front with the C classification, decent on energy point consumption as well, maintaining that C classification, and finally having a very abysmal damage done to stagger gauges. It possesses the projectile attack type and the rapid-fire synergy trait. Gamora's third ability is the Godslayer, which sends Gamora spinning forward in a charge cutting attack with that blade. It thus has the piercing attack type, and the area assault synergy trait is one of Gamora's better options when it comes to dealing damage, having that A damage classification as well as an energy point consumption of C, but it does falter a little bit in the stagger damage, only having that D classification. So this attack ideally is best used when slashing forward into a group of punishable enemies. The fourth and final ability that Gamora possesses is the Assassin's Strike. This involves a lunge forward with this sword attack and allows Gamora to cover a very significant amount of distance. This attack, when being used as a standard ability, can be aimed by holding down the button, and you can kind of see the toggle or sway in Gamora's actions here in the demonstrative clip. But it is important to note that when detonating this from a team synergy, it will detonate immediately in the direction that Gamora is facing. It possesses the piercing attack type, the charge synergy trait, a C classification in damage and energy point consumption, but a walloping A classification in stagger damage, making this move by far the best option in Gamora's kit for bursting down some of the tougher opponents you might come across. And finally, we have Gamora's Extreme Attack. This attack is one of the fastest attacks in the game. It involves an initial burst of a couple of shurikens being doled out in front of the character, followed by an uppercutting slash, which will catch opponents up into it, should bring a couple of them up onto her level before she slams back down on top of them. The entire attack is executed in less than 4 seconds, and doesn't seem to offer any other additional benefits to the character, but if you're concerned about the overall damage when trying to unleash the attack, this is certainly one that you will be able to get out even under the shortest of time frames. So now that we've looked at Gamora and what she has to offer, the question remains, where does she land within our reviewed and ranked tier list that we are compiling? Well, she is certainly not in the bottom part of this roster. She has a lot of very good attacks and abilities at her disposal, so that already ushers her above the F and D tiers. I would even put her above the characters that we have ranked in C tier. However, she doesn't have the overall damage output, beneficial abilities, or prowess to land her up here in the S and A tier areas. So that being said, she fits pretty solidly into the B tier. And personally, I think that she is more proficient than not only Falcon, but also Deadpool. So for the time being, she is going to sit atop B tier in our character rankings. She might be bumped down a rank or two based off of other characters that come at a later date, but we'll just kind of have to hang out and see. But what do you think? Do you agree with my placement and ranking of Gamora? Do you feel like there's anything that I missed? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below. And thanks again for watching today's Ranked and Reviewed episode. We'll be back next week with the next installment. And don't forget to check in for all of the daily uploads between now and then. So once more, thanks for watching, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day.